What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another Jay the Wonder Gamer video, and we are going to talk about a franchise that I kind of just recently got into the past couple years, and that is Octopath Traveler. And the reason we're talking about that is because during the latest Nintendo Direct, which was a partner showcase, we got the reveal of Octopath Traveler 0, which appears to be a prequel to the original Octopath Traveler, a game I never played. I started with Octopath Traveler 2, and I loved the hell out of that game. I highly recommend it, guys. If you've ever wanted to get into Octopath Traveler, I highly recommend trying out the second game. It was such a fantastic game to play. But moving along from that, what else we know about Zero is essentially it's taking some story elements from the gacha version, which is Octopath Traveler Champions of the Continent. Now, I've never played that game. I have real no desire to play it since it's a gacha game, and the only gacha game I enjoy playing is Grand Blue Fantasy. You know it. The premise of the story is your town is destroyed, and they seem to be touting that you have like two different narratives you can do. You can either focus on rebuilding the town, which is considered a more lighthearted adventure, or you can go after the people that destroyed your town for revenge, which they're touting as the more dark adventure. And one of the big calling cards for this game is the fact that you're not going to be playing as a traveler of 8, basically how they've done in the last couple games, where you have 8 characters, they have their own defined stories, and they merge together and then basically just go along the adventure until their story arcs are done. This time, you're going to be the main character, so essentially you get to create your own character who interacts with the rest of the travelers in the game. And from my understanding, this is going to be a huge cast because they tout about 30 playable characters, and from what you can see in the trailer, I believe you also get access to the original 8 party members from the first game, so that's going to be interesting considering this is a prequel to that game. But speaking of that big roster of 30 characters, we were told about 3 other characters that seem to be the first starting party of the game with you. The first person we're seeing is Stia, and I apologize if I butchered that pronunciation because they didn't really say her name, but essentially she is the childhood friend of your main character and is an architect as well, and her father is apparently a well-known architect in the town. And basically after the events where the town is burned down, her goal is to help rebuild it with you and bring people back. And in regards to combat, I believe her class sounds to be about a support class, because what we see from the information is her ultimate skill, which I believe existed in the gacha game but wasn't in the console games. And from my understanding, I think it sounds like the latent abilities that you got in Octopath Traveler 2. But anyway, hers is called Full Cheer, and basically what it is it gives you BP regeneration for the front or back rows and also SP regeneration for 2 turns. So that's very interesting. We'll also get into that later into the video too, about the new combat system setup. But basically she seems like an interesting first party member, and I can't wait to learn more about her. And then the next party member we run into is Fen. Again, I apologize if I butchered that name. And he is essentially the hunter of the game. And I don't know what to make of that, because I think the hunters, at least in the first 2 games, revolved around capturing monsters and then using their abilities in combat. At least that's what I got with Ochette, and she was amazing, by the way. Thanks to her. Fun note, she was able to get the final kill on the main final boss, and that was so awesome. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. They describe Fen as pretty much the older brother archetype for the main character, and it seems like he wasn't originally born in the town where this all takes place, so that would be interesting to see how he views things as opposed to the people that were actually born in the town. And in combat, like I said, the original hunter class was designed to capture monsters and then use those abilities in combat, but his ultimate ability is called Shield of Hope, and what it does is it reduces damage for 2 turns for all party members. So that's more of a tank ability than you would think of like a DPS hunter. So I'm very interested to see what his kit's going to be like in the full game, and also how he's going to interact with the other characters in the story as well, considering it seems like he's going to be the older member of at least the starting party. And then we come to the last party member that was revealed, and that is Laurana. Again, I apologize if I butchered these names. And her job is that of the cleric, and basically her backstory is she helps her grandmother, who is a priestess in the village, and she's very knowledgeable about the religion of the world. I think that's called the Sacred Flames, and her ultimate skill is called Maiden's Miracle. And basically what it is it grants the effect that allows the entire party from the front row or the back row to recover with 50% of their max HP after being incapacitated. So that could become really handy in tougher boss fights, where if a boss has the ability to hit really hard and take out an entire line and just have them auto res, that's really cool. And that seems to be it for the starting party as of right now. Now obviously you do have your main character who you get to create, you get to name, change their features, change their gender, hairstyle, and then I believe you get to pick their favorite meal, which offsets certain key stats so that you can make your guy like more physically based, more magical based, luck based, all that stuff. So it seems you have a decent amount of freedom when it comes to customizing your character. Now personally, I'm not the biggest fan of creator characters or avatars and all that. I find them less interesting than like a fully developed or at least fleshed out character, but that's just me personally. And I know some people really love becoming the MC so they can tell their own story, and that's basically what this game is touting, is that you will be able to tell your own story as opposed to basically being a onlooker to 8 other characters' stories as well. And with that, we'll segue into the battle system. So what I understand that is new about this game is that instead of using the standard 4 party members that we used in Octopath Traveler 1 and 2, you're going to be using 8 party members. But that makes sense because in the first 2 Octopath Traveler games, you only had access to 8 characters in total. In this game, you're going to have access to 30 characters in total. So now we're just doubling what's on the field. And from my understanding, it sounds like there's going to be a front row and a back row system. So I'm very curious to see how that's going to work out. And then if you've never played Octopath Traveler, they have a break boost system. So basically what that is you have the option to break the enemy. And when you break the enemy, by doing that, you have to hit them in their weakness, whether that's a sword, axe, a bow, a dagger, wind magic, fire magic, lightning magic. It's basically just finding their weaknesses and chipping away at the shield that they have. And however many numbers are on that shield is how many times you have to hit them that specific weakness. Now, what that comes with is the boost mechanic. So what that basically is you can store up turns with it. So that way in one turn, you could strike the enemy 4 times and you have the weakness on it. You could save up those boosts and then use them to break the enemy on the next turn. Or incidentally, you could have another character break that person. And then when it's that other character's turn, you can use all of their boosts to attack that enemy 4 times for massive damage. So basically it's like a big risk reward. And what happens when the character is broken is the enemy basically just stands there, loses a turn, because then the next turn they go up, they get their shield back. So like I said, big risk and reward. And I'm very curious to see how that's going to work with 8 characters now, because 4 was pretty hectic. So I can only imagine how crazy 8's going to be and how crazy it's going to be the party composition that you can have with 30 playable characters. So I just can't wait to see what the possibilities are going forward in the combat alone and how crazy the battles and the boss fights are going to be, because some of the boss fights in Octopath Traveler 2 were so amazing. Also hard depending on the party composition that you had. And I can't wait to see how integral other characters are going to be to the main character, because that's what I find interesting about these games is the ability for the characters to tell their own stories. And Octopath Traveler 2, they kind of acknowledged each other on the adventure, even though if you go by the main stories, sometimes it feels like they shouldn't be there. But at that point, I felt more like, all right, you got to understand this is different tales that people are just along for the ride for, and we're basically just here for that main character story. So instead of doing that for 8 different characters, it sounds like we're going to be doing that just for the main character. So I'm very curious to see how that's going to work with having a central main character and having like a revolving cast around him and how they interact with that cast, because I don't know if they're going to be a silent protagonist or if they're going to have a voice. I think they're going to have a voice, but I'm not 100% on that. Yeah, basically that's all the information I got so far on Octopath Traveler 0. I'm really looking forward to it, and we don't have to wait long. It's actually coming out this year, December 4th, and it's coming out for basically all the major platforms: Switch, Switch 2, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, PC. If you're interested, I highly recommend trying out the game, or at least looking into it to see if you're interested, because even though it sounds like it pulled some things from the gacha, itself is not going to be the gacha. It's not going to have those mechanics in it. It's going to be built like it's a RPG from the ground up based on the consoles, not on a mobile device that revolves around a gacha system. Hopefully this video gets you guys interested. If you never heard about Octopath Traveler, if you have heard about Octopath Traveler, please sign off in the comments which one's your favorite. Again, like I said, I've only ever played Octopath Traveler 2, but that was enough to get me hooked. And speaking of that, if you have any save data from some of the HD 2D games, you'll get a nice little bonus in Octopath Traveler 0. And basically the games that you're going to get that from are Octopath Traveler 1, Octopath Traveler 2, the Bravely Default HD Remaster, the Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D Remaster, and the Dragon Quest 1-2 HD 2D Remaster will get you some kind of bonuses from any kind of save data. I don't know if you have to beat the game for that count, or if you just need to have save data of them on the game. But that's a nice little incentive just for playing other Team Asano games, I believe, or at least other 2D HD games. But basically that's going to do it for me, guys. So please let me know in the comments section, are you interested in Octopath Traveler 0? Have you ever heard of the Octopath Traveler series? If you've never played them, does this game entice you enough to try it, or will you try the other games before this game comes out? So please just let me know in the comments. I'm very interested. Like I said, Octopath Traveler 2 was my first Octopath Traveler game, and I absolutely loved every second I had with that game. But I want to thank you all for making it this far into the video. If you have, I want you all to be safe out there. I want you all to be healthy out there. And remember, let's rock.